Hey, que la que hay, mi pana, ya tú sabes quién es. It's Rocky here from SpeakSpanishFaster.com. And in today's video, I have a cool new tip, strategy, technique, whatever you want to call it, that is definitely going to help you level up your Spanish. It's going to help you improve your Spanish vocabulary, expand your Spanish vocabulary, and it's a great way to learn Spanish. All right, so what does this tip have to do with? It has to do with Apple Podcasts. Now, recently, Apple Podcasts actually added transcripts to their podcast, which is amazing. You guys know how much I talk about you gotta read while you listen. It's great when you have the text when you're listening to Spanish, and that's always been one of the benefits of following YouTubers, Spanish YouTubers, to learn Spanish on YouTube, because YouTube provides a transcript. Well, now Apple Podcasts does it. First, it was only on English channels, but now they've added it to Spanish. All right, so this is a huge benefit to Spanish learners, especially because Apple Podcasts is free. You don't have to pay for a subscription to listen to podcasts, right? You just download. The app is already on your phone if you have an iPhone. So the first thing you have to do is find a podcast in Spanish that you like. And when I say that you like, it should be content that you enjoy consuming. Spanish, when we're learning Spanish, we should always try to find content that we really, really enjoy. All right, because that's going to make you want to listen. Just as on Netflix, right? You have a show that you probably love watching, or you have a podcast in English that you listen to every day because you really enjoy it. You should try to find a Spanish podcast like that as well, because it's not going to feel like you are it's not going to feel like tedious studying and learning, oh, I got to study Spanish. It's going to be like, hey, I get to listen to this podcast. I love this podcast. It talks about things that I love, and you're going to get to learn Spanish while doing something that you enjoy. Now, it's really easy to find Spanish content. Just go to browse on your podcast, and a lot of times you'll be able to find something. Let me see, just scrolling really quick. Let's see. So we have at the bottom, so just scroll to the bottom, en español. So you click that, and now there's a lot of different podcasts that you have in Spanish. Tons of Spanish podcasts from all different countries. So what I recommend doing is finding a podcast that speaks the speaker of the podcast should be from a country that speaks the Spanish that you would like to speak. For example, if you want to learn Puerto Rican Spanish, you should be listening to a Puerto Rican podcast. If you want to learn Dominican Spanish or Mexican Spanish, Spain Spanish, then you should be listening, if you can, then listen to podcasts from natives of those countries. So again, we are not using these podcast app to find podcasts that are language learning podcasts. We are looking for native content in Spanish. It could be sports, it could be news, it could be stocks, markets, it could be music, it could be anything. Now, one of my favorite Puerto Rican podcasts that I love to listen to is Café en Mano, and so you can search that on Apple Podcasts, easy. Now, once you go to, let's say you go to that podcast, you click an episode. I'm going to turn this down so I don't want to get any YouTube strikes, but let's say I play that podcast, and right now the podcast is playing. When you click there, at the bottom left, you will see this little dialogue symbol. You click that, and now the transcript goes with the speaker. So you can see how the words fill up, and the speaker is talking right now. So you literally have the transcript follows the voice. It's phenomenal. The transcript is very well laid out. It's better than YouTube auto-generated transcripts, because the YouTube auto-generated transcript, there's like no punctuation, there's no grammar, it's just all like lowercase words and stuff. So sometimes that's difficult to work with. This is organized into sentences. There's a space after pretty much each sentence. Very clean. And another cool thing you can do is if you hold, like you can click and go back to any part of the podcast, and it'll take you directly there. But if you click and hold, you can select the text. Now, what this is going to do is it's going to give you the full transcript. You can literally highlight, copy this whole transcript, and you can copy and paste it to a Google Doc. You can pretty much, what you would want to do is get this over to some sort of translator so that you can decode the content and make it comprehensible. If you're more of a beginner, if you're more advanced, you don't really need to do this. I recommend, if you understand most of what's being said, I recommend just reading and listening at the same time. This is also good because a lot of times when people listen to podcasts, it becomes more of a passive thing where they're just listening and they're doing other things and they're thinking about things, and then they're like, oh snap, what happened? Where am I at in the podcast? But with the text now, it keeps you focused, which is the concentration and focus is going to help you learn faster because it's more dialed in, deliberate learning. If you can understand the majority of the text, I recommend just reading and listening as you go. Write down the words that you aren't familiar with. Boom, you're good to go. But if you're just getting started, before it was harder to consume podcasts because many of them didn't have the transcripts. So if you're just getting started learning Spanish and you're listening to a full podcast in Spanish, yeah, it's going to be pretty difficult to understand everything. And if you don't have the text there, then you're pretty much, it's just going to be a waste of time. Now with the transcripts though, you actually see the words that are being said. You can, like I said, copy and paste this to different transcripts, even AI tools that'll transcribe it for you. And that way you can turn this content into comprehensible input, which I talk about all the time on this channel. You can break the text down based on, like, I'm going to spend time on the first 10 minutes of the podcast and I'll go back and forth. Like, I'm going to listen to that first 10 minutes a few times, listening in Spanish, reading in Spanish. Then you can read the translation in English, go back to Spanish, then test listening to it without any of the reading. So there are many different things you could do with this. Another thing I love about Apple Podcasts, similar to YouTube, is you have this time thing right here. Like if you click the podcast and then you click this 1x and you can slow it down to 0.75. This is very good. So slowing it down to 0.75 is very good for learning pronunciation. If you're going to practice mimicking, mirroring, saying what the person is saying after they say it, this is going to help slow it down so you can really practice on that pronunciation. But the other thing you can do is speed it up and do our hyperspeed method, which I've talked about many times on this channel. As a matter of fact, the last video we did the hyperspeed method. So if you're not familiar with that, you can watch that video and you can see kind of how we do it live. But pretty much the hyperspeed method is just about listening at regular speed and then increasing the speed to 1.5, 1.75. Usually, I mean, you could maybe go to 2x, but that might be, if it's too fast where you just can't understand, like if it just sounds like gibberish, then that's too fast. You want it to be faster than normal, but not so fast to where you can't understand the word that's being, like, you can't even pick out the words that are being said. If it's just like, blah, 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 then it's way too fast. I would say 1.75 in a foreign language is usually where you want to be at. But if you're really advanced, 2.0, depending on the Spanish speaker, because some Spanish speakers talk fast already. But what this is going to do is it's going to expose you to faster Spanish, which is going to train your brain to be able to handle fast spoken Spanish faster than normal. So when you get in those situations in the real world, you're already used to it. So this is like amazing. Like this is pretty much all you need, honestly, to really improve your Spanish. Of course, there's many other things you can do, but start with this podcast right here, and with these transcripts, translate them, just play around with it, have fun with it. That's the thing about learning Spanish, learning any language. The more techniques you figure out on your own and the way you make the techniques fit your style of learning, the better. But we know that the best way to acquire language is through comprehensible input and through content that we enjoy. And this right here kills those two birds with one stone. So give that a try. Let me know if it helps you out. Definitely check out my 3 secrets to learn Spanish faster. I'll put a link in my comments below and also in the description for you, because you can take those 3 secrets and now implement them with Apple Podcasts, and you can really take your Spanish to the next level. So definitely check that out if you haven't checked it out yet. If you enjoyed this video, if you found the content helpful, hit the thumbs up for me. Comment below. Let me know what else you need help with, or just any feedback you have. I truly appreciate it. The ideas you guys give me will really help me keep creating content for this channel. Last but not least, please do not forget to subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications so you never miss another video. Hasta la próxima vez. Ya tú sabes, hablamos.